The time is 6:15. Here is the news edited by Birini Gunabardhana, read by Victor Raj. Here are the headlines of the local news. A special delegation of IMF is to visit the island to discuss the release of the third tranche of the bailout. Health capacities at the Katunaik Airport and Colombo Port are to be improved under Japanese grant. 20 billion rupees credit scheme will be launched to revive small and medium businesses. 200 electric buses will be deployed in the Western Province. Cabinet nods to draft a new State Finance Management Act. Foreign news: President Biden hopes for ceasefire by next week. Sports news: tennis. Mexican Open, Jack Draper beats Tommy Paul. Local news in detail. Minister Dr. Bandula Gunabardhana disclosed that a special delegation of the IMF is to visit Sri Lanka to hold discussions on the third tranche of the bailout of the IMF. Minister Gunabardhana made these remarks at the press conference on the cabinet discussion held in Colombo today. The minister further said that the leaders of the opposition parties will also be invited to attend the discussions with this delegation. The cabinet has given the go-ahead to a proposal seeking to upgrade the Bandar Naik International Airport in Katunaik and the Colombo Port to be on par with international practices, recommendations and standards under a grant provided by Japan. As the economy of the island is mainly dependent on the income generated from the international tourism and business travel, the government says this requires a smooth operation of entry points into the country, building confidence among travelers and arranging cross-border entry points to comply with international health regulations on movement. Government of Japan has provided a grant of 1.17 billion yen through the International Organization for Migration to further strengthen border-related health preparedness at points of entry. Direct contribution to the control of the infectious disease and the overall security of all passengers, staff at the points of entry during health emergencies. Under the grant, the facilities of Bandar Naik International Airport, Colombo Port and the Maldives International Airport are planned to be upgraded. Cabinet approval has been granted for the implementation of a 20 billion rupees credit scheme to revive the micro, small and medium enterprise sector in Sri Lanka. According to the government, the proposed 20 billion rupees will be spent on the entire project, which has two components. Out of these, 15 billion rupees will be used to strengthen existing and new enterprises, and the remaining amount of 5 billion rupees will be used to support enterprises under the non-performing local category. The government states a significant number of small and medium-scale entrepreneurs involved in the manufacturing, import, export, tourism, apparel and various other commercial operations have found it very difficult to continue running their enterprises as a result of the economic downturn and the impact of external factors beyond their control. The Asian Development Bank has agreed to provide the working capital support for the small and medium enterprise sector as a relief. The proposed program is intended to provide credit facilities to existing micro, small and medium-scale enterprises for further expansion and recovery of their business through licensed commercial banks and licensed specialized banks at concessional interest rates. This news comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Continuing with more local news, Deputy Speaker Ajit Rajapaksa recently stressed the importance of the increasing public awareness of Parliament, saying that it would help to show how Parliament and politics can be relevant to citizens' lives. The Deputy Speaker said that very few of the community groups and individuals are aware of the role of the Parliament. how it works, the role of MPs, and the ways in which the public can engage with Parliament. He further added that the media has to play a key role in this regard by increasing public awareness and participation in the work of the Parliament, and also to empower citizens with the knowledge and information on important issues and parliamentary decisions. Cabinet approval has been granted to draft the State Finance Management Act based on the fundamental draft that has been prepared in this regard. Approval was granted at the Cabinet meeting in May 2023 to draft a new framework of financial rules and to include the draft's framework to the financial rules in the proposed State Financial Management Act. The fundamental draft was prepared under the consultancy and the policy guidance of the Supervision Committee appointed under the co-chair of two other budget departments and deputy Treasury Secretaries by the State Finance Department. Accordingly, the Cabinet has granted approval to the proposal presented by the President in his capacity as the Minister of Finance, Economic Stabilization and National Policies to direct the legal draftsman to draft the Bill of State Finance Management based on the said fundamental draft. It has also been proposed to entrust the powers to the Secretary to the General Treasury to appoint a specialist committee for inaugurating the formulation of financial regulations until the legal draftsman papers were proposed draft bills. That ends local news.
The main news story is brought to you by Sinhala Mahatmya.
200 electric buses will be deployed in the Western Province. The number of buses in possession of the Sri Lanka Transport Board is not sufficient. Another 500 buses were deployed under the Indian line of credit. 400 buses have been repaired, while another 500 are to be repaired. Minister Dr. Bandula Gurubadar disclosed that the Cabinet has green-lighted a proposal to deploy 1,000 new buses across the country. That came to you on Main News Story.
The Main News Story was brought to you by Sinhala Mahatmya.
Moving on to Watchlight, a hotline number has been established for the public to access the freehold rights of their land, thereby realizing the objectives of the Urumaya National Program. Individuals are encouraged to register their request by contacting the President's Office, Urumaya National Operations Secretariat, via the hotline number 1908 or telephone numbers 0114 354 600, 0114 354 601, available from 8:30 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. daily. That ends Watchlight.
Coming up, World News.
Headlines first. President Biden hopes for ceasefire by next week. Pakistan's first female provincial chief minister is appointed. Hungary parliament elects new president following scandal. World News in detail. U.S. President Joe Biden has said he hopes to have a ceasefire by next Monday in the Israel-Gaza war. His comments come amid reports of some progress reached in ongoing negotiations involving Israel and Hamas representatives in Qatar. Israel launched a large-scale air and ground campaign in Gaza after Hamas gunmen killed about 1,200 people in southern Israel on 7th October. The attackers also took 253 people hostage, a number of whom have since been released. The Hamas-run health ministry in the Gaza Strip says at least 29,878 people have been killed in the territory since then and 70,215 people have been wounded. Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz senior leader Mariam Nawaz, the daughter of three-time former Pakistani Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, has elected as the Chief Minister of Pakistan's Punjab province. She has become the first ever woman Chief Minister of a province in Pakistan. She won after receiving 220 votes in the 371-member Punjab Assembly. The election was boycotted by the opposition Sunni Ittihad Council Party, backed by jailed former Prime Minister Imran Khan. Hungary's parliament has elected a political novice as president after the resignation of his predecessor, who caused outrage by pardoning a man convicted in a child abuse case. Orban Ali Katalin Novak resigned as president this month after it was revealed he had pardoned a convicted child abuser's accomplice. Last week, the ruling party nominated Constitutional Court head Thomas Sulayok to replace Novak. On Monday, the parliament approved his appointment, after which he took the oaths of office. He will become president on March 5th. To wrap up the world news, let's take a look at the headlines. President Biden hopes for ceasefire by next week. Pakistan's first female provincial chief minister is appointed. Hungary parliament elects new president following scandal. That ends world news. Moving on to development news. The Ceylon Chamber of Commerce hosted a high-level delegation from the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development of Vietnam engaged in a working visit to strengthen bilateral relations between Vietnam and Sri Lanka in the fields of agriculture, forestry and fisheries. Highlighting Vietnam's competitive advantage in agriculture, forestry and aquatic products and the country's global ranking in agricultural exports, Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development for Vietnam, Le Minh Hoan, stated that bilateral agricultural trade between Vietnam and Sri Lanka has potential for growth. Further, he highlighted the respective strengths of the two countries to complement mutual progress and development. That ends development news.
Moving on with sports news.
Tennis news. British number 3 Jack Draper raced into the second round of the Mexican Open with a straight set win over American 7th seed Tommy Paul. Draper held serve throughout and converted 4 of his 5 break points opportunities to win 6-0, 6-4, 1 hour and 26 minutes in Acapulco. He will next face Japanese lucky loser Yasuhito Nishioka. Draper's compatriot Dan Evans went out after losing 2-6, 7-5, 7-6, 7-5 to American Ben Shelton. That ends the sports news.
Go ekak tiyana youth eකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු වීන හැබැයි කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all new NSB Ithru Mithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Business news sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
The 2022 annual report of the Commercial Bank of Ceylon has adjudged the overall runner-up and joint winner in the banking category at the Sustainability Reporting Awards presented recently by the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants. The ACCA judges further noted that the bank has submitted an excellent report which covers all material aspects of its business, showing concern for the community at risk in these difficult economic times. That ends business news.
Business news sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Go ekak tiyana youth එකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු වීන හැබැයි කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all new NSB Ithru Mithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Moving on to economic news, the Build Sri Lanka 2024 exhibition organized by the Chamber of Construction Industry of Sri Lanka is scheduled to be held on the 10th to the 12th of May at BMICH. This exhibition will be an opportunity for local and foreign participants to gather to discuss business-to-business trading partnerships. That ends economic news.
Weather report.
Showers will occur at times in the Nuwara, Matale and Polonnaruwa districts. Several spells of showers will occur in the eastern and Uva provinces and in Anuradhapura district. Showers or thundershowers may occur at a few places in the western and Sabaragama provinces and in the Kandy, Galle and Matala districts in the evening or night. Fairly strong winds, about 30 to 40 km per hour, can be expected at times in the eastern slopes of the Central Hills and in the northern, north-central, southern, northwestern, Uva and eastern provinces. That ends weather report. To wrap up the evening news on Radio Sri Lanka, let's take a look at the headlines once again. A special delegation of the IMF is to visit the island to discuss the release of the third tranche of the bailout. Health capacities at the Katunayak Airport and Colombo Port are to be improved under Japanese grant. 20 billion rupees credit scheme will be launched to revive small and medium businesses. 200 electric buses will be deployed in the Western Province. Cabinet nods to draft a new State Finance Management Act. Foreign news, President Biden hopes for ceasefire by next week. Sports news, tennis, Mexican Open. Jack Draper beats Tommy Paul. With that, we wrap up the evening news on Radio Sri Lanka. Back to my good friend and yours, Chandiva Pirakon.